right? So what I can do is I can put the same information in a linear format. And as you're reading it down all the way to the bottom, it's going to take you 10 times longer to read it. And then by the time you get all the way down there, does it make sense, or do you remember what I was doing at the very beginning? That goes with that linear versus organic. So not only do our minds process information better in a structure, but if you can put it in a mind map, you can process the information a lot quicker. So the reason I'm explaining all this and the benefits of mind mapping, because what we see is that's really the breakdown, organic versus linear, that we see in the workplace. And you'll notice the statistic here that 65% of all mistakes in the workplace are a result of miscommunication. It's because we all process information a little bit differently. So consequences, again, I'm not going to read all these to you. Over budget, project failure, missing deadlines, fairly obvious. So what's really the solution? In our eyes, the solution is moving from that sticky note, or like I call it the prehistoric sticky note process, into more mind mapping technology. Because if you utilize mind mapping, not only do you process the information quicker, you're not going to have to recreate it, because we can take that data and move it in and out of other products like Microsoft Office. So that being said, I'm going to kind of pause the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to show you exactly how some of this technology works. So what I'm going to do is grab one of these tools, and let's say we're imagining we're in this kind of planning and brainstorming session, right? So instead of the whiteboards, instead of the sticky notes, this is up on the wall. We'll brainstorm something generic like a product launch. Now with these different mind mapping tools, they're all very intuitive to use. Just pressing enter, we'll get these different deliverables. And I always tell people, as a best practice, don't worry about the placement of this information, because everything's going to be based on drag and drop. We can move this information wherever we want. So all I did there, and all mind mapping tools work the same. Pressing insert gives you different levels. Pressing enter gives you different items on that level. Now, you can always throw a numbering schema on this. The reason that's important, one, you can see that there's a hierarchy built in the software. Two, I'm sure the majority of everybody on the line has or does use MS Project. So when this exports over to MS Project, that's the numbering schema for you. So I mentioned everything was based on drag and drop. So maybe I want planning first. Maybe I want sales last. As you start dragging and dropping this information, it'll also start renumbering for you. So the idea here is to get all these ideas out and then easily just drag and drop them and move them wherever you want. So pretty straightforward getting into these tools. This one in particular, MindView, mimics a lot of the Microsoft Office functionality, especially the interface up here at the top. And that's because when you get into a tool like this, I want it to be intuitive for you to actually use. So let me do this. I'm going to grab a template. This is just a bigger version of what I was working on. Now let's imagine we're still kind of in that, that mind mapping, kind of brainstorming, creating the WBS stage. Maybe we want to type some notes or start defining some of these work packages. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight the branch. I'm going to launch a text note editor, and this is where I can start defining this work package. Maybe a new sales guy, a new manager. So if we close this, we get a nice little paper clip indicating something's attached there. You can also pull in pictures. You can also pull in pictures if you want to. A lot of people use this as more as a presentation or a visual tool. You can either pull them in from the multimedia catalog, or if you have pictures saved anywhere on your desktop. The other nice part about this is that we can attach multiple files. So let's say on 1.3, I want to attach an Excel spreadsheet that's relevant. So you just go to the paper clip, find it anywhere you have it saved. Let's see. Here we go. Here's an Excel spreadsheet. The nice part about this is if I left click on that link, it's going to take me right over to Excel where you're going to have this marketing budget plan. And you can hyperlink over to SharePoint. You can do websites over to servers. The reason I'm showing you this and the benefits of this mind map is because all your files, any relevant content can be attached to this structure. So as you're moving through this project, it becomes a simplified content management system for you. So you're not jumping through a myriad of folders and subfolders. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, everybody thinks a little bit differently. So if you don't want to see something as organic as a mind map, with these tools, you can easily switch this over to more of a traditional WBS. You've got a bunch of different layouts, a bunch of different styles, colors, shapes. So you can really make these as ugly or as pretty as you want to. And you also have this right-left view and left-right view, which is great for March Madness. So let's switch back over to this mind map. Now here's where the real power of tools like this come into play. Let's say we're getting out of this planning and brainstorming meeting and we want the minutes to the meeting. Or let's say we want, if we follow the PMI methodology, we want the WBS dictionary. So all we have to do is take this information and export it directly to a Word document. Now, advanced export allows us to pick a template, and we can decide whatever we want in these templates as well. Then when you export, what it's going to do is it's going to follow that numbering schema. So planning is going to be the first chapter, and then just rotates itself around clockwise, and sales is going to be the final chapter. So just export it out. Here we are in Word. Here's the image at the very top. It automatically generates this interactive table of contents for you. If I click on planning, it goes right down to the planning section. Now you're going to notice anything that I put in that map is going to be put over in this Word document. So those notes, that file, that picture, all gets put over in this Word document for you. Now the really cool thing about this is it's a two-way street. So I could send this to a colleague that wasn't at the meeting. They could make some changes to it and then import it back into MindView. It's going to update a new WBS or mind map with those changes. So the entire Office integration is a two-way street. Now it also exports out to PowerPoint if you want to make a PowerPoint presentation, which if we have enough time, I'll get into that functionality as well. But what I really want to talk about is starting to add scheduling information to this visual mind map. This is going to act a lot like Microsoft Project, where your main branches here become summary tasks, and it changes your 7-day week into a 5-day working week, which is all user-defined. So for instance, setup team. I want to adjust the durations, the task information, start-end dates. You can even start assigning resources if you wanted to. The reason that's important, or I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. With those resources, you can pull them out of an Active Directory address book, import them from a resource pool. You've got effort-driven tasks. You've got rates per resource. I'll come back and tell you why that email address is important a little bit later. So basically, you can start doing some of your scheduling while you're in this map view. Now, why is that important? Well, as you guys probably know, not everybody likes a Gantt chart. So we can show this information on the branch level. And maybe I want to isolate this. So let's go into a management meeting, a stakeholders meeting. Sometimes this is going to be a heck of a lot easier to digest than getting something as heavy and detailed in a Gantt chart where you're spending 20 minutes telling what it is and what it does. But we all know there's a time and place for Gantt charts. And typically when I'm working with customers and clients, I'm sitting in on their brainstorming sessions. You know, everybody's doing this using a flip chart or whiteboards or sticky notes. And then at the end of the session, you know, everybody whips out that camera phone, takes a picture of it, and then goes back and recreates it in something like Project. I can see a lot of heads going up and down. I'm familiar with that process. The thing about that, one, it's very time-consuming, and two, Are we all copying and redoing the data accurately? So again, think of these mind mapping tools as a productivity tool. So what we can do is just right-click, and we can take this entire map into a Gantt chart. If you guys weren't on mute, I can hear a lot of oohs and ahs right now. The thing about this Gantt chart is it's built into this program. You can still drag and drop durations. You can drag and drop constraints, even start dragging and dropping the dependencies. The cool thing about this, the reason it's built in, is anything you change here gets updated in that WBS or that mind map. And because Gold partners with Microsoft, it's going to act very, very similar. So constraint types, predecessor types, lead times, lag times, effort-driven tasks, it's all going to be built in. It's just going to be a lighter version of Microsoft Project and a little bit easier to use. The learning curve isn't quite as steep. So I'm going to grab another template because I can hear some of the questions being discussed. Does it export out to project? And of course, love project or hate project, it is an industry standard tool. And I just picked up another template with some more scheduling information. But yes, it does export directly to project. And you don't have to put it in this Gantt chart first. If you want to put it in a, if you want to use it as a brainstorming tool like the mind map and then export it there directly to project from that point, you've got that option. So now this is the same thing that was in MindView. Now it's over in project. I can hear a couple more questions. They're like, well, I see you're using 2010. Does it work with 2013 or 2003? The answer is yes. It works all the way back to exporting out to 2000, all the way up to 2013. But I tend to tell customers and clients that if you're still using 2000, you shouldn't be considering new software. Another scenario that I see quite a bit is that let's say we're, again, going into that management meeting. You're not necessarily going to whip out this Gantt chart. So what you're going to do is you're going to spend half the day recreating this into an Excel file and a PowerPoint file, something that is, digestible for the management. But again, instead of recreating all that information, what I'm going to do is just right-click, view this entire map as a timeline. No big secret here. It's the same information, just displayed a little bit differently. And you've got different filtering functions, so you don't have to show everything all at once. For example, I got a legend here. You'll notice on some of these branches, I've got different icons. And I've got it a red light, yellow light, green light. So let's say we're going into a meeting. Let's say we're going into a meeting, and I just want to filter on the red light items. So just grab a filter. And you can filter on resources, start, end dates, any project information. I want to do a branch icon that's equal to a red flag. Hit OK. Then what you'll notice is it just filters out on the red light items. So again, you don't have to show all the information if you don't want to. Now, staying along the lines of this is a communication tool now, what we can do with this mind mapping tool is export over to project reports. These project reports are going to be based in HTML, which makes them really, really easy to share among colleagues, maybe post on SharePoint or an intranet site. And they're going to surround themselves, these reports that is, around task and resource management. So if I click on, let's say, unstarted tasks, you get the summary task up above. Click on any one of these summary tasks, you're going to get the details of the unstarted task down below. There's a whole resource management side of it. There's a workload report, which if we look at this in depth, we can see Steve shows him that he's over allocated as a resource, where Stacy over here is in the green, so she's under allocated. And again, just another way to publish the information without having to recreate it. Okay, I'm not sure why it's fading out. If it continues to happen with my audio, let me know and I can do some changes here. I'll try to keep it a little bit closer to my mouth. Sorry about that. So let me go back to this mind map that we were working on. A couple other things that you can do as far as maybe portfolio or program management. This is set up in just a project. But if I want to set it up as a portfolio, maybe that's where 14 projects. And then I can do maybe project 1. You guys kind of see where I'm going, I'm sure, with this. Project 2. Don't worry about my bad typing. Project 3. And then project 4, I think you get the point. There's also a calculation feature in here that allows you to do any type of budgeting or estimates on these outer branches, especially in a portfolio or program view. And then just like in Excel, you can summarize everything inward so you get an overall estimate. The other really nice thing when you set it up in a portfolio or program view like this is that you can see what your resources are doing across the portfolio. You can also detach or isolate certain branches so that you only work on one project at a time. Now, there is a collaboration piece to these mind mapping tools. It's a cloud environment. So the cloud environment can be hosted within your internal firewalls, so you don't have to worry about any security issues, but it actually allows people to work on the same map at the same time. So maybe some of the resources want to work on project 1, maybe some want to work on project 3. There's true multi-user editing within the cloud environment. It's really cool. Also, you can lock people out of certain places in the map, and you can track changes as well. Now, as far as these other exports are concerned, you can export over to Word, to PowerPoint. You can export out to an Excel spreadsheet. Outlook, I'll come back and explain, shows you project, PDF, project reports are all pretty straightforward. Now, if you remember right, or if you remember, when I was putting my resource in here, I could actually put their email address in here. The reason that's important is because when you export over to Outlook, it'll distribute the task to the assigned resource. And then if your team or resource makes any changes, you can synchronize those changes back into MindView. Really cool. So that gives you kind of a real brief, high-level overview of how mind mapping tool works. You know, doing the planning, the brainstorming, being able to roll this into a project plan, but also being able to share it through the Microsoft Office integration. Now, let me show you a real life example. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with PMI and the PMI organization and chapters. I do a lot of speaking with the different PMI chapters. And I was working with PMI Montgomery. And I'm sure this document's going to look very similar. I've changed the names to protect the innocent. But let me show you. So what was happening in this chapter, every single year, you know, you get new board members within the chapter. So decisions are being made to change the chapter and to better the chapter. So there's a transition document every single year, and it outlines exactly who's doing what, why they're doing it, when they're doing it, you know, operations, projects, and matrix for each one of these teams. So as you notice, this document is 37 pages. It's impossible to get an overview of a 37-page document. So what they were doing is they were creating an Excel spreadsheet. So this made it a lot easier for the transition document to be overviewed and a task for each person. But again, the problem here is that you're updating different versions of the same material in two different places. So what we proposed is that I had them send me that Word document. I imported that Word document into MindView. Now let me show you what it created. So it created an overview. Now this is a lot easier to understand and get an overview than that 37-page Word document. Also, you can color code these just like that Excel file was too, so it's easier to see the different topics. You could expand these and then have the description under each one of these projects or items that they needed to do. Also shows the resources in each one of these as well. Now the nice part about this, hey, we're all project managers. So now we can take this document and we can roll it into a Gantt chart. So we can start tracking the changes and monitoring the project throughout the year. And then when we get new board members, all we have to do with this document, here we go. All we have to do with this document is change the resources. We don't have to update 3 or 4 different documents to get the same thing. And we can show this in a Gantt chart, a timeline, a mind map. Also with this document, we can still export it out to Word. We can still export it out to Excel without having to recreate this data. And another key component here, as you all know, PMI members are volunteers. So it's not like they're spending all day as if they're only things to do. So to be able to create this more efficiently and help them was a real big key to success with PMI Montgomery. And keeping in that same thought process, utilizing mind mapping just in day-to-day projects, it's just a productivity tool. So that's the presentation really in a nutshell. I've got through it, fairly quick here because I wanted to leave some room for some questions. Also, I want to put up the slide here, how you obtain your PDUs as well. So like I say, if there's any questions, definitely let me know. I'll be happy to answer anything.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. You'll see the slide up for PDU information. Just if you have any questions, why don't you go ahead and post them in the question section. I have one question here. How does MindView compare to MindJet?
Yeah, really good question. MindJet is another mind mapping tool on the market. And MindJet, they've been around for a long, long time. It's a great, great mind mapping tool. The biggest difference, and I will say this, out of probably the tools that are in the market, MindView and MindJet are probably the 2 most optimized for commercial usage. But how they compare, it's not necessarily the mind mapping portion of it. I always tell people that's kind of Coke versus Pepsi. MindJet has a tendency to have more features in their interface. MindView has a lot more default settings. But the real difference is what you do after you make the mind map. So MindView, the Office integration tends to be a little bit stronger. It's more optimized for project management, with the Gantt chart and a timeline built in as well. But if you're just looking for a nice commercial mind mapping tool, MindJet is a nice tool. And that comparison kind of can be said with any of the mind mapping tools that are on the market and how they compare to MindView. It's, again, what you do after you make the mind map.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Does this work with Project Server?
Yeah, with Project Server, again, you would just export out to MS Project file or Project XML file and then just upload it to Project Server. It doesn't have let's say, a direct link to saving it to a project server. And that being said, I don't know of any mind mapping software that has that connection yet. It's all a matter of exporting out to MS Project and loading that project file to the server.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions they want to post for Brandon? Okay, wait, I think we might have had one more come in. Oh, how is Matchware licensed?
Yep, it's licensed on a per user basis. So thinking about is if you want to buy Microsoft Word, you would buy a copy of MindView. So each individual user would need a copy of the software. MindView itself is $379 a copy. Obviously, the more you buy for a team, there's discount matrix available. And I will say this, MindView tends to be on the higher side of the market as far as price because you're paying for that office integration and those project management features.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen any more questions come in, so I thank you very much for your time today, Brandon. It was a great presentation. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.